Have you ever had that feeling, like someone from your past, they're not physically there, but they just kind of have this hold on you?
Oh, yeah.
They take up so much space in your thoughts, like way more than they should, right?
Absolutely.
And it affects your mood, how much energy you have, even like how you see yourself. Almost they're
Living rent-free in your head.
exactly
Yeah.
rent-free. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really common experience, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. You might have gone through some really intense things with this person, things that really shaped who you are. But even though, deep down that maybe it's not the healthiest connection now, it's like those memories and experiences just keep pulling you back in.
It's so true. It's
Yeah.
like you finally make up your mind, like, okay, I'm moving on. You might even create some distance, and then bam, it's something small, a photo, an old text, a song,
Triggers it, yeah.
and suddenly you're right back in that emotional space.
Exactly.
It's like being trapped by your own thoughts and feelings, Do you ever feel that? Like a resistance to just completely letting go, even when you know it's for the best?
Absolutely. I think if you're dealing with something like this, it's really important to know that, first of all, you're not alone. So many people experience these lingering ties to someone, even though they might not talk about it openly. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. What needs to happen for you to really let go and move on in a healthy way?
I love that. And, it's not just about understanding detachment as a concept, right? It's more about like, how do we make an actual shift inside?
Yeah.
So that peace becomes your reality, not just something you hope for someday.
Exactly. It's about embodying that peace.
Embodying it, yeah. So first things first, why is it so hard to let go emotionally? Like, you've probably noticed that this relationship brings more tension than peace, more draining than nourishing. Deep down, that staying attached is just...
Yeah, it's like it's fogging up your vision a bit.
Right? It's fogging up your vision, it's draining your energy, and it's really impacting how you feel about yourself overall.
It really does have a knock-on effect. I think one of the things that can happen is we don't actually acknowledge that it's happening,
You're so right.
Yeah.
So let's get real about what's at the root of this difficulty. I mean, it's more than just missing someone's presence. What those good old days, right?
Yeah. There's often a lot more to it than that. Emotional attachments, they're tricky. They can be tied to these old wounds, things that maybe we haven't fully dealt with. And often it's these needs that aren't being met. Some we might not even realize are there. Like, think about those feelings of emptiness. And sometimes those are connected to parts of ourselves that we just haven't really accepted or acknowledged,
Oh, interesting. So we're holding on to the external because it's linked to something unresolved internally.
Exactly. And then when we have those really intense connections, those bonds, there's often a story playing out underneath it all, unconsciously. It's not just that we like this person or enjoy spending time with them. Often it comes from this deeper place, this need for the other person to fill a void we feel inside. Like, we're unconsciously casting them in the role of an anchor, a safe haven, the source of our self-worth.
Wow, yeah. It's like we're looking to them to provide what we feel is missing in ourselves.
That's a great way to put it. And this is a pattern we see a lot. It often stems from our own emotional history, those times when we felt rejected, alone, unseen, insecure. Those experiences leave a mark, and we try to resolve them through our current relationships. It's not just about the person, but this hope that they can fix something that still hurts from the past.
Makes sense. So instead of seeing the other person clearly, we start viewing them as this solution to something within us, like they become the remedy.
You hit the nail on the head. You start to believe that only with them can you feel whole, secure, at peace. But here's the thing about this kind of attachment. It might feel good in the moment, but it can actually trap you. You might start to idealize the relationship, believing that this person is the only one who can make you happy, that no one else could ever compare. And the thought of losing them feels like losing a part of yourself.
Like you're incomplete without them.
Right. But what's important to remember is that this isn't really love in its truest form. It's more like emotional dependence disguised as love.
Ooh, I like that. Emotional dependence in disguise.
Yeah. And when we think about becoming our fullest selves, this kind of dependence can actually get in the way.
I see. It hinders our growth. Okay, so these attachments, they're often rooted in trying to heal old wounds, fill those inner voids. And that leads us to idealize the other person. But what about projection and self-deception? How do those play into this whole dynamic?
Those are big ones. Let's start with projection. It's this unconscious thing we do where we put parts of ourselves, our desires, insecurities, even our shortcomings onto the other person. Like, we might see qualities in them that we wish we had, or we might project feelings onto them that are actually our own. So without even realizing it, they become this screen for everything we feel we're missing.
Whoa, that's heavy. So when we think about letting go, it feels like we're losing those very things we admire or need because we projected them onto the other person.
Exactly. It's incredibly tough because in your mind, separating from this person feels like losing a part of yourself. But the truth is, that part was always yours. You just haven't figured out how to access it without them.
Like you're giving them your power in a way.
You could say that. And then there's self-deception, which adds another layer to all of this. Our minds can be tricky, you know? They start crafting these stories that reinforce the attachment. We tell ourselves this relationship is unique, that our future is doomed without it, that this person is our soulmate, our everything.
It's like we're creating our own reasons to stay stuck.
Yes. And the funny thing is, while we believe we need this person to be happy, the attachment itself keeps us in this constant state of anxiety, doubt, and frustration. You might feel good when things are good, but any distance or perceived slight, and boom, you're down in the dumps. Like your entire emotional state hinges on the relationship.
It's exhausting, really. And that brings us to a really important realization, right? Our emotional well-being isn't actually determined by the other person.
Exactly. That power lies within you. And the first step to reclaiming it isn't about forcing a breakup or anything like that. It's about really understanding what they represent for you.
Okay, so instead of trying to escape, we need to go inward. And you mentioned some questions we can ask ourselves.
Right. So instead of struggling to detach or suppress your feelings, try asking yourself these questions honestly, without judging yourself. What am I really looking for in this person? What part of me comes alive only when I'm with them? And maybe the toughest one, what void am I trying to fill through this connection?
It's so easy to avoid those questions, but I can see how they'd be really powerful.
They are. And you know, that discomfort you might feel, that's a sign you're on the right track. Because those questions guide you inward instead of seeking validation or completion from someone else. And that inner exploration, that's where true detachment begins.
So what does healthy detachment actually look like? How does it feel?
You know, it's not about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about freedom. Freedom to love without suffering, to let go without falling apart, to live a full life without needing this specific person.
I love it. It's about empowerment, really.
Yeah.
You mentioned before how our past experiences can influence our attachments. I'd love to dive into that a little more. What makes some people more prone to these intense bonds?
Sure. It's important to remember, first and foremost, that forming attachments is a natural human thing. We're social creatures. We crave connection, security, meaning in our relationships. There's nothing inherently wrong with being close to someone.
Right, of course. We all need connection.
Exactly. But there's a big difference between that healthy connection and an attachment that feels like a trap. The key difference is often this. It goes from choosing to be with someone to needing them to feel whole or secure. That's when attachment can turn into dependence.
And this shift often has its roots in our past, right?
More often than not, yes. This kind of dependence rarely just pops up out of nowhere. There's usually a story behind it. And a big part of that story is often rooted in our early experiences.
The influence of childhood keeps coming up. It's a powerful force, isn't it?
Oh, it is. You know, those early experiences with our caregivers, they lay the foundation for how we attach to others. From the very beginning, we need care, presence, affection, recognition. These are fundamental needs, not just wants. And we learn to connect our sense of security and self-worth to how those important figures treat us.
It makes sense we're learning from the very beginning. So if those early interactions are mostly positive and consistent, you're more likely to develop healthy relationship patterns as an adult, right?
Yeah, pretty much. If you had that stability, that acceptance, that genuine affection, you're off to a good start. But if your early experiences were filled with rejection, emotional distance, criticism, or even abandonment, well, you might internalize this belief that you constantly need to earn love, that your worth depends on external validation.
And these messages can stay with us even if we don't have clear memories of those events.
Absolutely. They operate under the surface, influencing how we build relationships later on.
It's like we're carrying that baggage with us.
Yeah.
You also mentioned something called the belonging trap. What's that all about?
Oh, that's a good one. It's like this, we all have this deep need to belong, to feel seen and chosen, to have an emotional home, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a fundamental human need.
It is. And when someone comes along and seems to offer that feeling of finally belonging, it's easy to get attached, really attached. Like they hold the answers to those questions we all have about whether we're worthy, lovable.
It's like they're giving us a place to finally feel safe and accepted.
Precisely. And that's where the trap can come in. If that need for belonging isn't well integrated, if you haven't really embraced yourself fully, you might start to build your whole identity around how this other person sees you. You disconnect from your true self and become who you think they need you to be just to keep that sense of belonging.
Like you're molding yourself to fit their expectations.
Exactly. And then your sense of worth becomes completely tied to their presence and approval.
That's scary. So a sign that an attachment is unhealthy is when you feel like you're nothing without this person. Like only their attention or love can give you a sense of peace.
That's a big one, yeah. And, it can be tough to admit, but that's often a reflection of our own unhealed wounds, not some magical power the other person has. We've unconsciously given them the job of filling a void we haven't learned to fill ourselves.
Makes you realize how important it is to do that inner work.
It really does.
Okay, so we've talked about how our past can influence our present attachments, how those early experiences shape our patterns. But it doesn't have to define us, right? We can change. How do we start to move forward from all of this?
That's the empowering part. Understanding these patterns isn't about saying, oh, well, this is just how I am, I'm stuck. It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose differently. What it does is highlight how important it is to be aware of our own history and how it might be playing out in our relationships now. Those unresolved issues from the past, they have a way of popping up again and again.
Like they're looking for resolution.
Exactly. And what hasn't been fully processed or healed can show up in different ways in our present connections.
Makes sense. So awareness is the first step to breaking free.
It's the foundation. When you start to understand that this strong reliance on another person often comes more from your own unmet needs than from something unique about them, well, you start to regain control. You realize you can give yourself those things you've been seeking externally. And as you build that inner strength, your relationships can transform. They're no longer places where you lose yourself, but spaces for genuine connection, authentic sharing.
It's about shifting the focus from them to us.
Yes, it's about reclaiming your power.
You mentioned before how sometimes what we call love can actually be a search for completeness or a way to cope with old wounds. Could you unpack that a little more?
There are attachments that cause a lot of pain, not because loving is wrong in itself, but because what we label as love can be driven by these deeper things we haven't fully addressed. It can be a search for wholeness, a way to try and fix old hurts, an attempt to heal something inside that we don't even fully understand. And as we talked about, projection plays a big part in this.
Right. We see the other person not as they are, but as we need them to be.
Exactly. We might give them qualities, roles that reflect our own needs and desires, not who they actually are.
And they can lead to idealization, right? Loving an image of someone rather than the person themselves.
Oh yeah, that's classic. When you're caught up in this kind of attachment, you tend to idealize the other person. You see them through this filter that downplays their flaws and emphasizes their good points. You might overlook their mistakes, make excuses for their absences, and even the smallest gestures of affection feel huge. But this isn't really love in its purest form. It's more like emotional need dressed up as love.
It's deceiving, really.
It is, and this idealization makes it even harder to let go because you've built up this image of them as someone irreplaceable.
I see. Because we're not connected to the actual person, but to this fantasy we've created.
That's it. And the more we idealize, the harder it is to detach because it feels like we're losing something incredibly precious.
You also talked about how our past wounds can shape our present attachments. How exactly does our history play a role in who we gravitate towards now?
It's fascinating, really. The intensity of our need for someone today can often be traced back to our past. Let's say you went through periods of loss, rejection, or you felt emotionally neglected by important people in your life. It's natural to seek relationships that feel really secure, stable, predictable.
Like you tried to compensate for what was missing.
Right. You're unconsciously yearning for that steady care and support that you didn't always get before. And when someone comes along who seems to offer that, well, it's understandable why you'd hold on to them tightly.
It's like finally getting a core need met.
Exactly. But here's the tricky part. You're not just attaching to the person in front of you. You're also attaching to this hope that this time those old wounds won't be reopened, that you won't experience that same pain or abandonment again.
So it's layered. It's not just about the present.
And the challenge arises when that current relationship starts to crumble. It triggers not only the pain of what's happening now, but also those old fears and hurts from the past. It all gets tangled up, which makes letting go feel almost impossible.
It's like you're reliving all the losses at once.
It can feel that way.
So it's not just the person, it's the echoes of the past that make it hard to let go.
Exactly. And it's not always easy, but learning to recognize those echoes, those patterns, that's a big step towards healing.
It sounds like we're often replaying familiar emotional scripts in our relationships without even realizing it.
That's a great way to put it. We all develop these emotional patterns, often rooted in those childhood experiences we were talking about. If you learned unconsciously that love equals struggle, or attention equals sacrifice, or affection comes with anxiety, well, guess what? You might keep recreating those same dynamics in your adult relationships. And that's why even when a relationship is causing you pain, you might stay because it feels familiar, even comfortable in a weird way.
Comfortable but not healthy.
Right. So the key is to become aware of those patterns, to question whether what you're feeling is really love or just a reflection of those unhealed issues.
So awareness is key. And what about that need to be seen and validated? How does that factor into these strong attachments?
That's a big one. You know, we all want to feel important, chosen, valuable. It's a basic human need. But if we haven't learned to cultivate that sense of worth from within, we'll desperately seek it from others. Every compliment, every I miss you, every bit of affection becomes like a lifeline.
Like we need constant reassurance to feel okay.
Yeah. But the problem with that is your sense of value becomes totally dependent on external validation.
Yeah.
You're giving your power away because your well-being is now hinging on something you can't control what someone else thinks or does.
So true. It's not just about the individual, though, is it? Sometimes it's the weight of the shared history that makes it hard to let go.
That's a really important point. Sometimes the struggle isn't just about the person themselves, but about all those experiences you've shared, the memories you've built together. You've faced challenges, you've had intimate moments, you might have even created a life together. This person becomes woven into your story, your identity.
It's like they become part of your fabric.
Yes. And so when you think about letting go, it feels like you're also letting go of a part of your own history, your own self. That's a natural human response. It's your emotional memory speaking, not just your heart.
So it makes sense to honor that shared past, to acknowledge its significance.
Absolutely. You can hold those memories. They're a part of who you are, but you don't have to stay in a relationship that no longer serves you just because it was once meaningful. The past is there, but you can appreciate it for what it was, acknowledge its impact, and then choose to move on.
It's about integrating it, not erasing it.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, detaching isn't about shutting down your emotions or pretending you don't care. It's about understanding your attachments, being honest with yourself about your needs.
It's about clarity, not coldness.
I like that. It's about clarity. When you realize that your attachments are often rooted in your own needs for security, belonging, validation, you can start to cultivate those things within yourself. Healthy detachment doesn't mean you become emotionally unavailable. It means you're no longer dependent on this specific person to feel whole and secure.
It's about loving yourself enough to not need that external validation.
Absolutely. And from that place, you can build future relationships based on genuine connection, not fear or need.
So it's a journey back to ourselves, really.
It is. And part of that journey involves facing those deeper reasons why we might confuse need with love, why we cling to what no longer serves us. It's about having the courage to examine what binds us to another person and what parts of ourselves we've projected onto them.
That takes honesty and vulnerability. You've given us so much to think about in terms of why it's hard to let go. Now, let's talk about the how. What are some concrete steps we can take to actually begin this process of emotional detachment?
That's where the rubber meets the road, right? Understanding the why is important, but it's the doing, the taking action that creates real change. And, emotional independence, it's a journey, not a quick fix. It takes time, effort, patience. But each step you take gets you closer to a more fulfilling, balanced way of being, both with yourself and others.
I love that. So where do we start? What's the first step on this path to emotional independence?
It all begins with you. With really understanding yourself. Remember, we often cling to others because we're trying to find those qualities, that sense of completion that we think we lack. So self-reflection is key here. It's about getting to know yourself deeply and honestly.
And how do we go about doing that? What are some practical ways to engage in self-reflection?
Well, one great tool is journaling or reflective writing. Find a quiet space, grab a notebook, and just start exploring your thoughts and feelings, especially those related to the person you're trying to detach from. Ask yourself those tough questions we talked about earlier. Write about what you need from this connection. Is it really love, or is it something else? Maybe a need for security, validation, a sense of purpose.
Sometimes just getting it out on paper can be so clarifying.
It really can. It helps you see those patterns, those unmet needs that might be hiding beneath the surface. It's like taking stock of your emotional inventory so you can figure out what's really going on and what you can actually do something about.
It's about taking ownership.
Exactly. So once you start to understand your own needs and motivations better, what's the next step in strengthening your emotional independence? Step 2 is all about actively nurturing that self-reliance. And I want to be clear, this doesn't mean shutting yourself off from others or becoming some lone wolf. It's about learning to enjoy your own company, to create sources of fulfillment that don't depend solely on one person. How do you do that? Start by making time for things that bring you joy, things that help you grow. Revisit old hobbies, explore new interests, set some goals, big or small, and create healthy habits that support your well-being, whether it's exercise, mindfulness, learning a new skill, anything that nourishes you.
It's about filling your own cup, not waiting for someone else to do it.
I love that analogy because every time you connect with yourself in a positive way, it's a reminder that you are whole and complete on your own. And as you become more emotionally self-sufficient, you realize you don't need to cling to someone else to feel valuable or content.
It's about recognizing your own inherent worth.
Exactly. That peace and fulfillment you're seeking, it's already within you.
Okay, so self-reflection, building independence through things we enjoy. What other tools can help us go deeper into our emotional landscape?
There are some really interesting techniques that can help you connect with your emotions on a deeper level, even beyond what you might uncover through writing. One that I find particularly fascinating is dream analysis.
Ooh, dreams. They can be so mysterious.
They can, but they can also offer these incredible insights into our unconscious mind, those parts of ourselves we're not always aware of. Dreams can often reveal emotional patterns related to our attachments that we might not consciously recognize. So try keeping a dream journal. Write down your dreams as soon as you wake up, and then spend some time reflecting on them. What are the recurring themes? What emotions are present? What might those symbols represent in relation to your relationships?
It's like a secret language we can learn to decipher.
Exactly. And by paying attention to our dreams, we can gain a deeper understanding of what's really driving our attachments and behaviors.
So dream analysis is one tool. What's another technique that can help us on this path of self-discovery?
Another powerful technique is active imagination or visualization. Try this. Close your eyes and imagine yourself completely letting go of this attachment. Really visualize your life without being dependent on this person for your sense of well-being. What does that feel like? What are you doing? How do you see yourself? Happy, fulfilled, whole, without this person at the center of your emotional world.
It's like creating a new mental blueprint.
That's a great way to put it. It helps you rewire those neural pathways to see that a fulfilling life without this attachment is not only possible, but it can be amazing.
It's about opening up to new possibilities. But what about those times when the process feels really difficult or we hit roadblocks? You know, those moments when we doubt ourselves or feel like we're taking a step back.
That's where step 4 comes in, cultivating acceptance and self-compassion.
Right.
You know, emotional detachment, it's rarely a smooth, straight line. There will be ups and downs, moments of doubt, frustration, even fear. That's totally normal. You might question your choices, wonder if you're doing the right thing, get discouraged when things feel hard.
It's all part of the process.
Exactly. And that's why self-compassion is so crucial. Treat yourself with kindness, patience, understanding. Allow yourself to feel your feelings without judging them. When you feel vulnerable, when you stumble, see it as an opportunity to learn and grow, not a failure.
It's about being gentle with ourselves like we would with a friend.
Exactly. And you can practice self-compassion in so many ways. Mindfulness, meditation, breathing exercises, even just talking to yourself in a kind, supportive way. Remember, every step you take towards emotional detachment is an act of self-love, a way of prioritizing your own well-being.
It's a gift you give yourself. So acceptance, self-compassion, what's next on the list?
The 5th step is learning to find peace in solitude. Again, this doesn't mean becoming a hermit. It's about being okay with your own company without needing someone else there to feel complete. Solitude isn't something to fear, it's actually a valuable opportunity. It's a chance to reconnect with yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, your priorities.
That's about creating space for yourself.
Exactly. And when you learn to be at peace with being alone, you stop clinging to relationships out of fear. You realize you can be happy and fulfilled regardless of your relationship status. Solitude becomes this sanctuary where you can nurture yourself, grow, and discover strength you might not have known you had.
It's like a reset button, a chance to recharge.
I love that. So, solitude, it's not a punishment, it's a gift. It's a path to self-discovery and a more authentic life.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And what's the sixth step in this journey?
Step 6 is all about boundaries. Healthy boundaries. Think of boundaries as these guidelines, these protective barriers you set for your own emotional well-being. They prevent your emotions from becoming entangled with others in a way that's harmful. Start by consciously setting limits on how much time and energy you spend thinking about or engaging with the person you're trying to detach from, especially if you're still in contact.
So even if you can't physically distance yourself yet, you can create emotional distance.
Exactly. For example, you might decide, okay, I'm not going to check their social media every 5 minutes, or I'm not going to talk about this relationship with everyone I know. These small changes can make a big difference. They create space for healing, for strengthening your own inner resources, for shifting your focus back to your own life.
It's about taking back your energy and attention.
That's it. You're reclaiming your power. And finally, the 7th step, this one's all about presence and gratitude.
Gratitude, one of my favorite topics.
Mine too. You know, so often when we're stuck in these attachments, our minds are either stuck in the past, replaying memories, or fantasizing about a future that might never be. This keeps us tethered, prevents us from fully appreciating what's here and now.
We're so busy looking back or forward, we miss the present moment.
And the best way to counter that is to cultivate gratitude, to consciously focus on the good things in your life right now, and to appreciate who you are in this moment. Instead of getting caught up in what was or what you wish could be, shift your attention to what is. It helps you ground yourself, loosen the grip of that attachment, and find peace in the present.
It's about shifting your perspective.
Exactly. And a simple practice that can make a big difference is this. Every day, write down a few things you're grateful for. They can be small things, a quiet moment, a kind word, the beauty of nature, a cup of tea.
It's about finding the joy in the everyday.
It is. And by practicing gratitude regularly, you start to see the abundance in your life. You stop seeking fulfillment externally or in some imagined future. You realize you have so much to appreciate right now.
I love that. It's about shifting from a mindset of lack to a mindset of abundance.
You got it. And it's amazing how powerful that shift can be.
These 7 steps, they're so practical and insightful. It really highlights that emotional detachment is an active process, a form of self-care, a journey of growth.
It really is. And, you know, it's not always easy. It might take time, but it's incredibly liberating. By putting these steps into practice, you're not just moving towards emotional independence, you're creating a more authentic, balanced, and fulfilling life. It's a path of self-discovery, and while there might be bumps along the way, it ultimately leads you to a place where you can experience love and connection from a place of wholeness and security.
Without needing someone else to complete you.
Exactly. And remember, detaching doesn't mean rejecting love or connection. It means freeing yourself from unnecessary suffering and reconnecting with your truest, strongest self. It's not about forgetting the past, it's about healing, growing, and moving forward towards a future filled with peace and autonomy. Every step you take is a victory, a step towards greater inner peace and mastery of yourself.
You have the power within you.
You do. So nurture yourself, believe in your capacity for healing, and keep moving forward.
I love that. Today has been such a powerful exploration, not just about detachment, but about the transformative power of returning to ourselves. And, you know, detachment, as we've discussed, it's not about pushing down your feelings or becoming cold. It's a courageous act of self-respect, a deep commitment to your own well-being. It's about recognizing that your inner peace, your essence, it comes from within, not from someone else.
It's about taking responsibility for your own happiness.
Exactly. And just imagine waking up each day feeling whole, free from that weight of unrequited love or those painful memories that no longer serve you. Detachment creates that space, that freedom to grow, to embrace new experiences, and to build relationships that are truly fulfilling, starting with the one you have with yourself.
It's a beautiful vision.
It is. It's about reclaiming your power to choose.
Yeah.
Not about being alone, but about having the freedom to choose who you share your life with, without those old patterns of need or obligation holding you back. It's about honoring the past, being present, and stepping confidently into a new chapter.
You have the strength to do that.
We all do. And, every step you take towards detachment, it's a reminder of your inner strength, your capacity for happiness. It's about trusting yourself, believing in your ability to heal and create a life you love.
Absolutely. And if today feels like that turning point, that moment to finally let go, trust that inner wisdom, that capacity for transformation, you have everything you need to heal and create a more fulfilling life.
So powerful. You're not losing yourself by creating healthy distance from someone else. You're actually reclaiming your emotional space, your power, your sense of self. You deserve to be free from those external expectations, those old attachments that are weighing you down. You deserve happiness. You deserve peace. And this journey, it's not a goodbye to feelings. It's a hello to the most authentic, resilient version of yourself.
It's a beautiful way to put it. So